Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would predict all these cards. We're going to go, I believe, over, let's see, 7 cards today. It is going to be the UFC Fight Night Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Geoff Neal. Can't remember Geoff Neal's nickname, but I'm pretty sure he does have one. But anyway. So, first of all, before I start the video, I just want to say thank you to all my most recent subscribers and viewers. I appreciate you guys very much. And if you do like the content, I would appreciate a thumbs up and possibly even a subscription overall if you would like to, and if you like the content. Thank you very much. But anyway, so let's get into this. I actually did not realize how stacked of a card this was until I looked into it. I mean, when Anthony Pettis is like the 7th card that I see, that's a pretty darn good card. Anyway, so we're going to predict all 7 of these cards. Let's get into it. And let's start off with Anthony Pettis versus Alex Morono. So, I'm seeing a very similar pattern with all these cards, which is mainly very, very greatly experienced fighters versus possibly new talent. Both Pettis and Morono seem to be somewhat experienced. When I looked up Morono and did some research on him, he seems to be a decently fast striker. Not the worst striker in the world, but he is available to get hit. He is available to get countered. So it's an interesting fight because Pettis is returning back to 170. And the last time I think he fought actually at 155, he fought Cowboy Cerrone in a fight that I personally actually thought that he lost. But when it comes down to the overall, or maybe that was a 170. I can't remember because Cowboy sometimes goes from 155 to 170. But either way, when it comes down to the overall, I wasn't overly impressed with Anthony Pettis in that fight. Anthony Pettis has really not been that impressive for a certain amount of years now. He's been a little bit gun shy. He doesn't seem to be the same striker that he used to be. He just doesn't have that same spark. So who's going to win this fight? This is debatably the most toughest fight for me to predict on here because Alex Morono, I could see him winning the fight early on, possibly even winning the first 2 rounds, and then Anthony Pettis possibly countering him with something and knocking him out maybe. This is a tough fight to predict because I could really see either man winning this fight. Anthony Pettis has more experience against top contenders when it comes down to the overall. Man, who do I think is going to win this fight? Okay, well, just going off of a gut, and I'm not going to be too confident in this prediction, but I will predict that Anthony Pettis wins the fight. I believe overall that his counters will provide Alex Morono with some trouble. Alex Morono will probably throw more in the fight, but Pettis, I do believe, will get the job done. I do believe he will win the fight. I'm going to say that he counters him. I'm going to say that maybe he stops him within 2 rounds or at least wins by a decision. Even though I was not overly impressed with Anthony Pettis in his last fight against Cowboy, he did look like he was throwing a bit more. As long as Pettis doesn't go into this defensive shell that he sometimes goes into, I think that most likely he can win this fight because Morono is a little bit straightforward. He is available to get hit, so we'll see what happens. But guys, that is debatably the toughest fight to predict on here. But really, a lot of these fights are 50-50. So when it comes down to the overall, best of luck to both gentlemen. I'm going to predict Anthony Pettis by either a stoppage or unanimous decision. We'll see what happens, but that's my prediction, Anthony Pettis. Not too confident on that one, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, let's go to this next one. Jillian Robertson versus Taylor Santos. Another very interesting fight. I have not seen much of either of them, but I do remember Santos. The UFC has been trying to get her in the limelight for a little bit. Robertson, I've seen a couple of her fights as well. 2 primarily strikers, it seems like. They are, they can go to the ground. Santos does appear to have a little bit of a problem with handling elite grapplers, and Robertson, she's not the worst grappler, but I wouldn't necessarily call her an elite grappler when it comes down to the overall. So when it comes down to it, I'm going to predict Santos in this one. I believe that most likely she'll win by decision. I would not be surprised if she won by stoppage. I believe that she is the faster striker. I believe that she is the better striker. Sometimes she can be a little bit gun shy. And if Jillian does end up, if Robertson does end up putting her up against the cage or possibly getting her down to the ground, she can make her very uncomfortable. But I just don't see the great athleticism as much as, from her as I do from Santos. I think Santos can outpower her. I think that she can override her. I believe overall that Santos will win this fight, and I'm pretty confident in that prediction. We'll see what happens, but I'm going with Santos on this one. I believe that she is more talented than Robertson, and I believe it's going to show in this fight. So I'm going with Santos on that card. So, this next one, I believe the only heavyweight fight that I see out of these 7 cards, Marcin Tybura versus Greg Hardy. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Tybura. There's a couple of ways maybe you could pronounce it, but that's the way that I'll say it, I suppose. Anyways, interesting fight. Greg Hardy, for those of us that know, used to be an ex-football player. He actually used to be an ex-football player for my favorite team, the Carolina Panthers. So I actually know a little bit about Greg Hardy. Then we all know about the, case of threatening his girlfriend, all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then now, story be told, he's in the UFC now. So, Greg Hardy, he's never really been the most impressive heavyweight, and neither has Tybura. This is a very interesting fight. This is another 50-50 fight on this card. When I look at Tybura, he debatably is going to be the biggest challenge yet of Greg Hardy's career. It's going to be very, very interesting. Tybura doesn't move around the worst. He seems to throw a decent amount. I think he has a decent jab. Greg Hardy, after the first round, does seem to tire out a little bit more. He doesn't seem to throw as much. It seems like sometimes he looks a little bit too much for that one-shot knockout. He could very possibly take Tybura to the ground, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder than he thinks on this one. So, man, another fight that's very hard to predict on here. So who do I think is going to win this fight? Man, okay. Well, man, my gut could go either way on this one, and that's mainly what I go by is gut instinct, because it does not fail me as often. But this is a risky pick, but I'm going to go with Tybura on this one. And the reason why I'm going to go with Tybura on this one, I think he's going to throw more than Greg Hardy. I think he's going to be a little bit more accurate than Greg Hardy. I don't think Greg Hardy is going to be able to take him down. Now, that being said, Tybura is able to get hit, and sometimes he is a little bit too straightforward. Overall, he is available to get hit. I seen him in his, I believe this one fight against a Russian fighter. I cannot remember his name, but when it comes down to it overall, I was not extremely impressed with Tybura when it comes down to it overall. So we'll see what happens. He is available to get hit. Greg Hardy does have a lot of power, but he is a little bit wild and a little bit one-dimensional as a striker. Tybura, I believe, does have a little bit more in his game, so we'll see what happens. I'm going to go with Tybura by decision in this fight. We'll see what happens. It could end up either way. I'm going to go with Tybura, though. That's my prediction for this fight. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, this next fight between Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font. Another one that could really go either way, ladies and gentlemen. Oof, man. Now, Rob Font, I actually confused him with another fighter. But Rob Font, when I take a look at him in his last couple of fights, he has a win over Sergio Pettis and a win over, I believe, another good contender. Rob Font is actually a very decent striker. When I seen him in the fight against Sergio Pettis, very disciplined, decent defense, very good jab. I really like his jab. Good pace. Marlon Moraes is coming off of a loss to, I believe, Corey Sandhagen, so we don't know how he's going to take that loss, and he got knocked out pretty bad in that fight, so we'll see what happens in this fight. I know Moraes is more experienced against top contenders, but this is a fight that could really go either way. Once again, Marlon Moraes, a lot of power, devastating strikes when it comes down to the overall, but Rob Font, I do believe that he's more on the up and up right now, and I believe that in some areas you could argue that he's a little bit more disciplined in his striking. You could debate that. I'm not necessarily going to say that he's a better striker than Marlon Moraes, but he does seem a little bit more defensively responsible. I also do believe he's a little bit bigger than Marlon Moraes in terms of reach and height, but I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on it. But when it comes down to the overall, I'm going to go with Rob Font in this fight. I'm going to predict that he wins by decision. I think it's going to be an upset. I know most likely Marlon Moraes is going to be favored in this fight. I'm gonna go with Rob Font on this one. I think he's going to pull off the upset, and I'm going to say that he wins it by decision. That's what I'm going to say. I think his jab is going to get to him. I think overall that he'll push the pace. We don't know how Marlon Moraes is going to be after that loss to Corey Sandhagen, especially getting knocked out the way that he did. Very interesting fight. I'm going to go with Rob Font on this one. And once again, not 100% confident with that one. I could easily see Marlon Moraes winning this one, but I would say I'm more confident on that one than I am the Anthony Pettis and Alex Morono prediction. So Rob Font on that one. That's my prediction by decision. Anyway, so this next fight at welterweight, Michael Piera versus Chaos Williams. I've never been overly impressed with Piera. Big showboater, and that's, I say that because that's just what I remember from him. Seems like a nice guy, but the bottom line is this. I've never overly been impressed with him. His striking to me doesn't seem overly impressive. I've seen him lose a fight or two that he probably should have not lost. Now, I do believe he did win his last fight. Kalen Williams, when I take a look at him, though, he just looks a lot more talented. His power is very good. He's very explosive. He seems like a very disciplined striker. And in a 3-round fight, I do believe that Chaos Williams is going to win this fight. I'm going to say that Chaos Williams wins this one by decision. I'm going to say that he wins this one. I do believe that he is the more talented fighter, that he is the better striker and the better fighter all around. I believe he's going to outpoint him. Would it surprise me if we seen a knockout here? Wouldn't surprise me. I believe that Chaos Williams is going to win this fight, and I believe he's going to win by a 3-round decision. So we'll see what happens. This could be a 2-rounds-to-1 fight or a 3-rounds-to-0 fight. Wouldn't be surprised either way. I'm going to go with Chaos Williams in this fight, and we'll see what happens. So the next fight that we have here, the former featherweight champion of the world, Jose Aldo, against the new up-and-comer Marlon Vera, who recently got a win over Sean O'Malley. Very interesting fight. The 135-pound division is one of the more talented ones out there by far. Jose Aldo is probably, I'm not really sure actually where he would rank right now. Maybe within the top 3, some would argue, because in my opinion, he did beat Marlon Moraes in that fight, I thought. But when it comes down to the overall, Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera, interesting fight, but I don't really see this as a 50-50 fight. Marlon Vera is really stepping it up in terms of fighting a fighter with experience. And when I take a look at Jose Aldo, even though he did come off of a devastating loss to Petr Yan and kind of got dominated and beat up in that last round against Petr Yan, I think Jose Aldo is going to be more suited for this fight than Marlon Vera is. Marlon Vera did beat Sean O'Malley, but I don't think that it's I don't think he's going to do extremely well in this fight. I think Jose Aldo's strikes are going to be way more accurate against Marlon Vera. I believe that he is going to, have more of a pace than Marlon Vera. I believe that he is a very accurate striker still to this day, and I do believe Jose Aldo still has a little bit left in the tank, however much that is, and I believe it's going to be enough to beat Marlon Vera. So I'm predicting Jose Aldo to win this fight by unanimous decision. I'm going to predict him to win at least 2-rounds-to-1, because Jose Aldo, after the first 2 rounds, does tend to slow down a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was 3-rounds-to-0. I think Jose Aldo is a little bit too experienced, and I think that his skill set is a little bit too good for someone like Marlon Vera. So we'll see what happens, but that's my prediction for this one. I think Jose Aldo is going to get it, and we'll see what happens. It'll be very, very interesting. And that leads us to the last fight of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Geoff Neal. Ooh, man. Okay. Another 50-50 fight. When it comes down to the overall, you could debate that this is the hardest one to predict on here. When I look at Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, very good counterpuncher. Me and my father, we were watching a fight of his earlier, and he said that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, you could tell, has a karate-like style. He's a very good sniper, which is what karate fighters tend to be, very good counterpunchers. But the problem with them also is that they're a little bit straight up and down. They're a little bit straightforward, don't have great head movement. When it comes down to the overall, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he's kind of at a little bit of a crossroads in his career. He did win his last fight against Vicente Luque, although I was never, impressed with Luque. It still was a decent win. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was somewhat dominant in the fight, you would argue. Geoff Neal does look on the up and up. He does look like, once again, this card is pretty much all about, the experienced versus the newly talented. And this is another one of those fights. Geoff Neal does look very talented. He looks very fast. He has decent power. He's a very decent striker, decent movement, but he is available to get countered. When I seen him in his fight against Nico Price, he is available to get hurt. He is available to get countered at certain times. And I'm wondering what his pace will be like against a counterpuncher and a counter striker like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because people don't just go rushing in there against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You have to be very careful, because if you go in there and you rush in against him overall, you could get hit by a very good power shot. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, although he doesn't look like the biggest guy in the world, he's got very decent power in both hands, and you got to watch out for his kicks as well. This is a very interesting fight. This is another one that could go either way. But my prediction, and I'm not 100% confident on this one either, I'm going to go with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson on this one. I think that his experience will show through here. I think he's going to have a very good performance. If he does win this fight, this shows that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson later on down the line maybe could work himself up to another title shot. Who knows? But when it comes down to the overall, I think he's going to win this fight. I think that Geoff Neal is going to leave himself open and be countered. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson does have pretty good power in both hands. Geoff Neal does have pretty good speed, and he does have pretty good accuracy. But when it comes down to it, I believe that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, I believe that his power and his counterpunching ability is going to make Geoff Neal throw less than usual. And I think it's going to make him very, very uncomfortable. So I'm predicting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to win this. On the scorecards, would I be surprised if it was a stoppage? I would not be surprised if it was a stoppage. But I'm going with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson on this one. So there are the predictions for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. And once again, if you like the video, if you like the content, please thumbs up, subscribe. That would help me out very, very much. Thank you. And on top of that, if you have any comments or concerns or anything like that, would love to hear your guys' opinions. We'll see what happens. So my predictions, I'm going with Pettis, Santos, Tybura, Font, Williams, Aldo, and Thompson. And those are my 7 predictions, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very stacked card. And also check out my Canelo Alvarez versus Callum Smith fight prediction if you haven't checked that out yet. That's another fight that is happening this weekend. It's getting to Christmas, guys. It's getting to the new year. It's going to be very interesting, but 2020 is not over for us yet. This is a very, very, very good card, and I didn't really even realize it until I looked at all the cards, but this is a very excellent card with a great amount of fights on here. So anyways, guys, definitely tune in this Saturday overall to see UFC Fight Night Thompson versus Neal. Going to be a very, very interesting night of fights, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, that's about it for me. We'll see the results on Saturday, a few days away. And that's really about it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll talk to y'all later. Let me know what you guys think. And that'll be it for me. See you later.